I think it was pretty much 5 years ago when I first came to the Bitcoin Munich meetup. So if you ever want to hold a presentation here, it takes 5 years to understand Bitcoin well enough, maybe, until you can actually talk about it. So back in the day, I knew nothing. I came here fresh. So now I work full-time in the space as a designer. And I'll just tell you about what I'm working on these days. And those are 3 things, but I'll just hop right in. So who has heard of the Bitcoin design community? A few people? Okay, that's really awesome. So it is an initiative that was started in mid-2010. And at that time, I had been working in, I've been designing the Monero wallet for like 3 years. And I was trying to find other designers in this space, and I was like, there's nobody there. There was like no designers, professional or semi-professional, experienced designers anywhere to be found. So I felt like I'm just by myself. I'm just going to do this for fun. It was just a really good time. I loved it, found it super interesting, learned a lot. But there was pretty much no one else. And at the time, Spiral, which was at the time Square Crypto, which was founded by Jack Dorsey because he basically loves Bitcoin. He was like, we need to support the Bitcoin ecosystem. So they wanted to hire 6 developers and 1 designer. So they created this little entity called Square Crypto and put out a blog post with a Google form for an application. And I just filled it out. I was like, cool, I'm not expecting anything. Let's just see what happens. And then it took about a year of discussion and all kinds of things later until the plan was created to create this Bitcoin design community, because they were trying to hire 1 designer to help improve the user experience of Bitcoin, to improve adoption. But they interviewed lots of people and everyone said the same thing. Like, we are designers, we are interested in this space. I don't know any other designers. And everyone was just kind of in their own little corners there. So then they changed their plans and said, okay, we're just going to try to bring everyone together in this community. We'll give a few grants out for people to kick this off. And then it was an experiment. We'll see they just wanted to see what happened. And then, we're now 2.5 years later. So I was one of the first people to get one of those grants. And the Bitcoin design community is not meant just for designers. Because if you think about the whole user experience, what it takes to build a really good product, you need a lot more people. So you have your developers, naturally, and the development open source ecosystem it's been around for decades. They know how these things work. But translators, PMs, designers, all these other people, they don't know yet. And we're trying to bring everyone together so we can make really world-class, open source Bitcoin applications. So we're trying to be incredibly inclusive and bring everyone together. And we have a website, which is at bitcoin.design. We have a Slack where we hang out. There are like 3,500 people in there. That's an older screenshot. So that was one of the first things. What do we need for a community? We need a place. We need to get people together. And so we also organize a lot of different calls. So people have all kinds of conversations. We have community calls. We have different topical calls. We have, for example, learning Bitcoin and design calls. We have UX design calls. Sometimes projects show up and they say, well, we would like to get some feedback on our product. Then we organize a call. There is a call actually tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. If you're interested, you can just join the Slack. And that one is about node management, Lightning node management, and the role of the operator, like what they need. And we have someone from LNDG and Adi from Blockstream joining to discuss, like, what do people need when they manage their node on like a kind of a semi-professional to hobbyist level? And then how can we build interfaces around that? So if you want to join tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., you're welcome to join. So we try to, we create the space to hang out. We try to create this activity, just like Bitcoin Munich meetup. They meet once a month. And one of the things we also had to do is we had to redefine this idea of open source, because it takes like a designer like 10 years to figure out how to work with GitHub. It just doesn't make sense, and it will never become intuitive. I finally got around to it after a really long time, but I only know enough to be dangerous, but not more than that. And the designers just don't have that that way of working that's just completely building in public, discussing, the consensus mentality, just sharing everything, sharing when you're uncomfortable, building on each other's work, remixing each other's work, and also chipping in to build something bigger than you could do yourself. I've talked to all kinds of different people, and a lot of designers, they're just uncomfortable with that idea. Also with illustrators, some I talk to, they're like, this is my personal work. Like, I don't want to, this is just mine, right? I want to have full control. I want to put it out there. So we're trying to also, get the designers together, have them hang out and do all kinds of things, and also kind of form a little bit of this open source culture, but in kind of a design way. We're pretty far away from it. We need way better tools. Our design tools are just not built for it, not like GitHub and everything that the developers have. But we're trying to get there. We'll see how it goes. And a community also needed something to rally around. All right, so that was also something that was kind of baked in at the beginning. We're going to get everyone together, and we're going to try to build this design guide with the idea being we're going to research all kinds of relevant topics that are necessary to make good Bitcoin applications, and we're going to research them and document them so people all around the world can build better Bitcoin applications more quickly, more easily. So that's what we did. It's like 50 plus pages by now. We tried to split it up in a few different aspects. Let me see what comes next here. Yes, this is the one I was looking for. So getting started, that is a very essential one for designers who are coming into the space. They can just quickly read a page about the basics of how the technology works, design principles around decentralization, privacy, inclusion, interoperability, all these things. We kind of want to bake kind of the Bitcoin philosophy also into some of those things. So that is kind of like a good entry point. And we've seen some companies, they basically, when they hire a designer into their team or a designer joins a project, they just make them read that, and I've heard it's been useful for different people. So there was one aspect of it. Actually, another one was designing Bitcoin products, which is in a bit of a similar vein. Then we have reference designs. This is where we realized, after gathering lots of content, documenting like best practice from like sending screens and onboarding and manual backup, user interactions and all of this stuff, where it's like, we kind of have all these things floating around, but they don't really come together to build like a blueprint of a whole product. So after lots of discussion and back and forth, we kind of came up with a framework where we said, okay, if we think about personal finance, we have our daily spending wallets, where I just pull it out, I'm paying for my coffee, for small things, right? That'll probably be Lightning. We'll create a reference design around those. Then we have our saving wallet, which might be a single signature on-chain, or it might be multi-sig or so, maybe assisted with a hardware device or some other service or so. We'll try to create reference designs around those. So we kind of have our product categories. So if a builder, someone who wants to work on a Bitcoin wallet in wherever they are, they can just kind of look at these blueprints and kind of pick the pieces that they want from them. And yeah. So there's a lot of there's like 13 pages in there, and we try to illustrate everything with these mockups. I think there are almost 200 UI mockups in there for just a lot of different screens. So it really should simplify design and wallet development work. And we're continuously improving things. Like this year, I think since late last year, we started working on Lightning, where we started with a reading group about mastering the Lightning network. So we all kind of had to figure out how channels and liquidity and all this stuff work. And then this summer, we kind of wrapped up this section here. And one of the upcoming sections will be around merchants, so paying for things. A little bit less the merchant side itself. So if I have a store and I want to set up BTC Pay or so, probably not so much that, but more of the making a payment online, buying something online, buying something at a store, like what everyone talks about, the papusas in El Salvador. So there'll be more coming up, always around these different type of product categories as blueprints. And then there's always a big discussion. We found that before the design community, there was all this discussion, and it always ended up talking about technical stuff. Like within 5 minutes, if you talk about the user, and then 5 minutes later you talk about some, I don't know, some multi-sig or hashes and all kinds of stuff. I don't know. So we try to kind of include technical explanations in here that designers need to understand why products are built certain ways. But we put them in kind of a how it works section. And all of the different products, the reference designs, they kind of reference them. So if there's something about onboarding someone in a Lightning wallet, it links out to the Lightning service provider and how another page around how channels work and all of this type of stuff. So it's, there's all kinds of stuff there. It gets a little bit unwieldy sometimes. But hopefully, they're good resources. And the other part that we also try to do with this. So I've heard this criticism before that's like, oh, these Bitcoin designers, they're just like in their ivory tower just making things up, right? And that's, of course, no one wants that. So for example, myself and Mo, we did a page on accessibility in Lightning or in Bitcoin wallets earlier this year. So we researched what is good accessibility in applications, how does it work, how do you test it? We put this page together for the what's and how's and what to look for, different types of accessibility. We linked to videos for developers and designers to quickly test these things. And then we actually tested like 10 different wallets. We documented all of our findings, and then we went to like Phoenix and Moon and Blue Wallet and all these other ones. Went to the GitHub repositories and we're like, here's what we found. You need to fix this and this and this and this. So we tried to take everything and also kind of get it out there, because if we gather this information, that's helpful, but that doesn't mean that anyone in the real world is really, their experience hasn't really gotten better. So that's a big part too, just getting it out there and implementing it in the real world. All right. Another thing that has interestingly emerged over the last year that will probably become more important is the discussing and pushing out standards. So this started with a small campaign, I think earlier this year, where the problem came up that you share some Lightning QR code, but then the other person only has an on-chain wallet. That's actually happened quite a lot in El Salvador, where the tourists come in and they want to make an on-chain payment, but the merchant only has a Lightning wallet or so. And so the idea here was that we can unify this. We can have a single QR code that contains both on-chain and Lightning to create a much smoother user experience. And then a website. So Steven built this website here to promote that idea. And then it was, I think the Cash App team implemented it and some other teams. And yeah, it was a way to kind of think about, here's a really good solution. Let's try to get it out everywhere. So payments for everyone just become a lot smoother. And there's actually a lot more than going on. Another one was to promote Taproot adoption here. That website went live another month ago or 2 months ago or so. So it lists all these different exchanges and products and applications, like the current status of Taproot integration and whatnot. And then it tells you how to test for it. And then you can also file updates, or it tells you like how to contact the teams. So, and there's a lot more coming. Someone else just brought up the idea about promoting Bolt 12 adoption in wallets and how we can do that. And I think an open community that's just where people just hang out and discuss these kinds of things is like a good place to kind of, find consensus and then also help make these things happen. Especially with Taproot, other things really depend on it, like Taro and their other benefits, privacy and cheaper fees and other things. So the quicker we can get these things out, the better applications we can have, the more useful Bitcoin will be, and I think we'll all be a little bit happier. And then once it's adopted, we're just going to take it for granted, and then the next thing comes around. So that is kind of a new-ish idea, but I think that's pretty cool, and I hope the community can play a role in that one. Another part that came out of this is our resources for designers. So at bitcoinuikit.com, you can download a Figma file. Figma is like the design tool these days, where you get a whole library of components and screens and design system. So if you're a designer, you don't have to start from scratch. Like when you open a design tool, you get a perfectly blank slate, a white canvas, and you have to build everything, like the smallest button, the textile, the colors, everything. But here you get a really good foundation of all kinds of different components. And some projects, a new Bitcoin Core app started on this, Albi started on this, Jam, the new Join Market Web UI, started with this as a foundation. And then we've also seen it used at some hackathons where people just want to quickly, mock something up and, start with a good foundation. So that's also been like a good side effect. Some people just don't want to read the guide, right? They just like, just give me screens. I just want to make some UI. There's also the sister project is the Bitcoin icons, which is at bitcoinicons.com. I don't know how many there are, 50, 60 or so. But if you're a designer or as a developer, there are some node modules you can just pull in, and then your application has all the Bitcoin icons that you need. And then, there's just all kinds of projects happening in and around the community. By the way, Bitcoin Smiles, that was started by Pav, who's kind of the PM at BTC Pay, and they're looking for someone to help out. So that's an initiative to get donations and then pay for dental improvements for people in El Salvador. So they've helped a lot of different people. I think it's bitcoinsmiles.com or .org, and they just posted, I think yesterday or so. If someone wants to help organize that effort, you're more than welcome to help out. So some of these projects were some of these projects like Albi, they have their own channel in the Slack. That's where all the team activity happens. Hello Bitcoin. Some people got together and helped with the motion graphics for some of their videos. BDK and LDK. There was me and a couple other people helped out with their websites and their logos. Wallet Scrutiny, that's also an interesting one that's just happening right now. I think it's walletscrutiny.org, I want to say. So they basically try to do these test if all of these applications are reproducible, to run automated tests and other analysis in all the applications, or the open source applications at least, and just kind of keep check on everything. And they just came around and said, hey, we'd like to get some feedback. What can we do? And then there was a kickoff call about discussion about how this project can be improved. So I don't know exactly what will come out of it, but if someone wants to help with that, you're also more than welcome. All of these things, are happening, and different people kind of form around them and join them as they like. It's all voluntary. And then, another thing that we try to do with the community is just spread the word, which is just reflecting of what's actually happening. I post about it on Twitter when something gets done or so, or when calls happen. We have a newsletter that just summarizes every 3 weeks what happens, and we have a Bitcoin TV and YouTube channels where we try to be just super open and build in public, and we record the calls and we put them live. So that is that. And now on to the Designathon. So this idea had been floating around for a year and a half. And so the idea was like, well, everybody loves hackathons. Let's also do something. And then no one organized anything. And then it just kept coming up. So this year we decided to actually do that. But it's just not something common that's in the design space. So we thought, well, how can we adjust this? How can we do an actual designathon instead of just copying kind of the hackathon developer-focused approach? And so the idea here was to just activate a lot of people, just get them out, get them together, and just do stuff, whatever they wanted to do. And with any background and any expertise, right? Just get people together and kind of see what happens. So we decided to do a 12-day long, completely online event, 12 days because it was 2 weekends, which allowed for people with families or who had jobs to also kind of put in some time. And it's a global community from 24 time zones. So, we wanted to give in a certain flexibility. And that was just wrapped up. We started October 12th, and we wrapped up on October 23. At the very beginning, before the event, we said, hey, everyone, just submit ideas, just anything you would want to work on or anything that you think someone else should work on. Share us your ideas. And those are also on the website now. You can check them out. That was just a way to get people just interested and also kind of see what people want to do. Because as organizers, we had no idea, what anyone wants to do. Really, you just don't know. So that was a fun thing to see what came out of that. I think we had 31 ideas or so. And then as we got closer to the event, we asked people to start discussing and forming projects, completely voluntary. Anyone could take any idea, whether it was theirs or not. Multiple projects could form around the same idea, just to kind of kind of see what happens. And some people jumped on. There was one small group around inheritance that ended up winning the designathon too. They started a week before with like videos and wireframes and all kinds of stuff. And others, they're like, another project, they started like, I think 18 hours before the final presentation call. They're like, we want to do something, so let's do it. I think they just found out really late about it. So it was, just completely up to anyone to do what they wanted to do. We try to do hangouts and workshops, give people opportunity to hang out, get feedback. There's some examples here, UX research workshop, LNDG, they were super active in organizing their own calls. They wanted a lot of user input. That was a fun one. And then we had final presentation that took like 2.5 hours or so. And the interesting thing, it was me and another organizer, and about 3-4 days into the designathon, we were like, we have 5 prizes. We're not going to get 5 projects to submit. We were just so worried because we saw so little activity. We underestimated the cramming that happens at the end. And so we ended up with 19 projects. So we were just so relieved at the end. But it was a really good time. Everyone had 10 minutes. They presented. You can watch this on YouTube as well if you're interested in seeing all the presentations. And we also gave, because people were from all time zones and backgrounds, people could also submit videos or whatever they wanted, basically. It was totally up to them. But a lot of people came out here, and that was super, super cool to see, and a big relief. So I'll just go for the 5 winners here. They won the Inheritance Project. They won half a Bitcoin which we got from a mystery sponsor, who shall not be named. And they just dealt with the topic of, obviously, inheritance. We're one guy from Prague and another one from Japan. They worked together on this. Very experienced designers, but the first time they really, really contributed to something. So that was cool. And they just wanted to deal with this because they have kids and they're like, I'm at that age, I need to think about this now, and I don't know the good solutions. And they're actually continuing this now afterwards as well. LNDG, that was, I already mentioned it, that's for node management. If you have an Umbrel or a MyNode or something like that, you might have installed it and played with it. The promise here is that it automates your liquidity and other aspects of node management. And they did a really good job, totally different type. That was one guy from Spain and another guy who is a PM from New York who'd never done anything in Bitcoin before. Acremint, that was also someone from Serbia, I want to say. And also just quit their job recently, working with a few people on this. This is kind of community banking for agriculture communities in Africa. So there are these agricultural communities that kind of have their community bank, which literally is just a box with 3 keys right now, and they manage it together. And they want to upgrade them into the future of money here. It's not related to Fediment. It's kind of a multi-sig setup. So they want to give them like a small box with 3 hardware wallets. Each one, I think they got the cost down to 15 euros or so, something like that, and just provide that and help onboard these kind of communities. So totally different again from inheritance and the node management. One guy, Jakob, he researched Taro. There were also several calls around Taro with a Lightning Labs team organized. So we learned a bunch around that. That seems like it's coming soon, and some parts might be good, some parts might be horrendous. That will remain to be seen. Taro universes are like explorers, basically, and no one, not even the people at Lightning Labs, really know exactly what they will look like. So that was kind of a very forward-looking exploration. That was our 4th prize. And the 5th one was someone from Germany and someone from Portugal working on a kids application, just make it super simple. I think both have kids, so it kind of makes sense. So that it was really diverse. I thought it was super cool about all the different things that came up, and how none of the teams had really worked previously together. So it was all pretty spontaneously formed, and they all kind of had different ways of working together. So it was interesting. I worked with one which I'm also continuing, called Saving Satoshi, which will be a website with interactive tutorials to learn Bitcoin coding. You'll learn how hashes work, and you'll write your own hashing functions, and you'll learn about mining and pools and shares. while also traveling through time and reliving the history of Bitcoin with some cypherpunk time travel story. And this image was generated via AI. So we're just trying to mix like all kinds of things here together. So that's actually really fun creative exploration, this AI art. And now on to Legends of Lightning. So the Designathon's done. The way it was planned was in the Designathon, no one codes. You can if you want to, right? But everyone could do whatever they want. But the idea was step away from the code. Design is a very good planning tool. Just talk to your users, figure out what you're going to build, do some prototypes, do some UX, and form a team, and then present kind of a plan and a prototype or something like that. But then you can continue in Legends of Lightning because that's a 2 months long event. And the history of that one is that Johns, who was also one of the people who helped kick off the Bitcoin design community, he was like, his big mission was to activate more people to build on Bitcoin, especially on Lightning. That was his big thing. He was like, no one's building anything, no one's experimenting, we need a ton more people on it. Especially with WebLN and LNURL, some of these technologies providing super good standards that you can just build all kinds of stuff on. So he kind of went off, started this Bold Fun initiative, organized a couple of hackathons, and then realized, those were kind of the 2-day hackathons over a weekend. And then he realized, well, people do the hackathon, they have a good time, then they're super tired afterwards, and then the projects just die. So like, okay, let's step it up. And that's where Legends of Lightning happens. So that's now a 2-month tournament-style event where people can first take part of the Designathon and do their design, and then they can continue on this tournament. And so they got sponsors to give like 3 Bitcoin in prizes in total. They have they partnered with African Bitcoin Conference, so there's a Build for Africa track, there's a global adoption track, and then there's a grand champion. It's called Legends of Lightning, but it doesn't have to be Lightning, it can be anything related to Bitcoin. So that's like a huge step up, a huge effort to really just try to get people to build and come up with ideas and do all kinds of stuff. And that is happening right now, and you can still join all kinds of projects, totally open at the moment. They have a really good review panel for the Designathon. We had the mystery reviewers, kept them really private, but they got just a ton of people here or across the whole space. It's going to be a pain in the butt for them to review everything. And if you care to participate, you go to bolt.fun, and they have a maker community. They build a whole custom website around it. So you can put your name in there. You can create your own profile. You can say, I'm back-end, front-end, UX, PM, whatever. And then you can find other people that are looking to do things. You can also start a project or join a project. There are 50 projects now. I think I checked yesterday or so. And then you can also, you can just register your own project if you want to participate, completely open. You just go to the website and do it. And then they organized, I don't know how they got 50 events. There's like a pleb weekend was in Austin. They had something in Tel Aviv. There were, I think, something in some Italian city that I can't think of right now. They got like all these other events to kind of partner because they really just wanted to make sure that people can get together in real world spaces also to either meet people, meet teams, have talks, or whatever it is. And then, here, the top one here, I think the name might look familiar there. There's something called Anthony who just gave a talk a couple days ago. Maybe the same talk that you'll hear today. But they got a ton of experts here together, and they just have all these talks in Twitter spaces, and you can join any of them. I tuned into several of them around building on Lightning via WebLN and whatnot. There are also some around Taro, and you can watch all the recordings too. So there's just a huge amount of information here too. So if you want to build anything, it's very likely that you have a good workshop information here as well. So that's the Bold Fun YouTube. And another interesting thing, coming back to open design and building in public, was the idea that every project, every week, posts an update. They call it PPP, which is plans, progress, and problems. You quickly talk about what you do. And that gives a lot of transparency later on, which is helpful for the prices. But it also allows people from the outside to see what's going on and potentially join. People don't like writing these, but it's very beneficial. And that's kind of where I am with this here. So as you can tell, there's just all kinds of really big efforts here to just get more stuff built. And the idea with the community and all of this stuff is not that there's like one central resource, like the guide shouldn't dictate anyone, no one should dictate anyone what to build, but you just provide opportunities for stuff to happen. Because I think Bitcoin adoption is best done bottom up, when we have a tons of local solutions that people come up with all over the world. And if someone can take, like LDK or BDK, some code libraries, they can take some design libraries, they can have some good resources, they have a community where you can say, hey, we need someone to test stuff or so. I think more cool and interesting things will be built much faster. And so I'm excited. I hope I get to continue doing this type of stuff for a bit longer, because I think it's super cool. And that's kind of what I have for you today. So thank you. And bitcoin.design is the website. You're free to check it out or not, as you desire.